As comic pros double down on SJWism, comic stores nationwide close up. That's not news. That's been going on for the last 5 years since the downward spiral started. Across the nation, a myriad of once successful comic stores have shuttered their doors. The formerly revered bastions of nerd culture and community have been replaced by hip coffee shops and experimental restaurants, or merely left as decrepit shell, there's not an S there, shells of plaster walls and loose fixture fossils. Recent years have seen an increase not only in comic store closures, but the frequency of said closures. 2017 alone saw 50 comic stores closed between January 2017 and January 2018, and unfortunately 2018 does not signal an end to the trend. Why is this happening? Well, I'll give you a little bit of insight. Number one, comic creators are toxic as hell. If you don't like what they're doing, they will full on attack you. If you bring it to their attention personally, they will attack you, block you on Twitter, and basically do everything they can to run you in the ground. That's part of the problem. Another big part of the problem is they're pandering to social justice warriors. They're pandering to the feminists. They're pandering to all of these different groups that do not buy comics. What is to be gained from virtue signaling to all these different people? Nothing. They just like to be seen as virtue signaling. They like to be seen as woke. We're woke. We're woke culture. We've got all of this going on. We appreciate women and all of this other stuff. And it's just, this is what you cause. This is what you do when you're woke. You make you and everybody around you broke. Okay? That's the bottom line on it. You can take that to the bank. But that's about all you'll be able to take to the bank. Comic book sales have dropped significantly in 2018, a trend that continues on a monthly basis across the board, despite the contrary rhetoric from comic professionals and insiders. Comic fans and store owners alike are limiting the deaths of their meeting points for product and community. Many are clamoring for explanations and solutions. Unfortunately, the answers are not simple. They are simple. They are simple answers. That's where you're wrong. There are a multitude of factors that contribute to the decline of traditional brick and mortar sales. And this is typically, and I read the article already once. This is where they'll go into, well, digital comics. I don't buy that theory at all. I mean, that's like, I know that, that's how video stores went out. Was, Hulu, Netflix, everything went digital. Comics are collectibles. That's one of the big draws of buying comics. That's why I bought comics for years. I quit 5 years ago because that was when all this get woke shit started, and I wanted no part of it. I rode off into the sunset with my back issues, and I was content. But this, and do you think the comic pros care that this is happening? Do you think they have any idea at all? Well, let's ask Patrick Zurcher and see what he thinks. It's really not my job to persuade or convert anyone. It's not even my job to listen to complaints. Yeah, I didn't think so. Anyway, alternative avenues of purchase. That's what we just talked about. Changing in markets aren't the only cause of the downward trend. Across the board, horrible business practices are pushed by creators and insiders despite numerous backlashes. Marvel seems to have learned little from a catastrophic 2017, doubling down on pushing unwanted characters and storylines on tired audiences. Forced diversity. Okay, that's a big problem in comics right now. Forced diversity. You had Hulk was Korean for a minute. Go with what they did with Iron Man, where they forced Iron Man to be a homosexual character when they had homosexual characters. It's just really sad that's where we have to go with that. We have to force. I mean, you had interesting characters. You had North Star. He's gay. You could have worked with that all day long. Wouldn't have been a problem. But you had to go and force Bobby Drake to be gay. I have real problems with that. If you can't come up with some stuff on your own, don't take and twist what's already there. I mean, Books that rely on tired pandering like The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, Iceman, and Champions are pushed upon audiences who have staunchly voted against their desires for such books with their wallets. These books aren't selling, and not because of imagined bigotry, but rather because of their low quality. The dialogue is written as if by a Tumblr blogger. Yes, it is. I swear that's all Marvel hires. They hit Tumblr and they're like, who wants to be a comic pro? And then they pull a bus up to wherever Tumblr people hang out, and they all get on there, and then it's just a sad bus of male feminists and blue hairs and something that if it drove off a cliff, nobody would miss it. These books aren't selling, not because of imagined bigotry, but rather because of their low quality. The dialogue is written as if by Tumblr bloggers. The characters are shells of themselves, and the stories ham-fistedly attempt to insert social justice narratives into the foreground of every book. Alongside Marvel's tendency to habitually relaunch books in an attempt to push books with a new first issue, confusing fans and store owners alike when looking for the next book, these issues push readers away. DC, who normally limits their social justice pandering to a few specific titles amongst their wide line of books, has also announced a reboot of their Vertigo imprint. Yeah, let's get into that. Vertigo, once a line for adult stories that broke from the restrictions of the Comic Code Authority, will focus on books blatantly pushing activist agendas, much to the dismay of longtime DC comic book fans. Fans were dismayed to see an adventurous and experimental imprint become home to, as DC Vertigo executive editor Mark Doyle states, stories that just felt really relevant and really topical, whether it was a smart take on immigration fears or what it's like to be a woman on the internet. These are things that are just commonly in the headlines and not going away. They're going away. Eventually, all this stuff will pass. And what we'll have left is a pile of comics that nobody wants. And if you have any hope for Vertigo, let's take a look at a sample of Border Town #1, shall we? Cringy as hell, right? Moving on. The biggest factors in the drastic decline of comic book sales are the creators themselves. In a twist of irony, these same industry insiders and creators regularly take to social media to condescendingly insult their established fans' prospective audience. Mark Wade. Creators wantonly dismiss legitimate criticisms and discussions, opting instead to label anyone who doesn't completely agree with their opinions or statements as a bigot or a Nazi. In fact, the term Nazi has been thrown around so often at any possible disagreement that its meaning has been extremely diluted. Old fans who once supported their books are systematically being dismissed, while new fans are turned away by the people they wish to support. Creators are willing to disavow the old guard for the new, only to find there is no new guard and that their empires are in ruins due to self-siege. SJWs do not buy comics. They do not buy video games. They do not participate in card games. All of this pandering to SJWs and feminine, they do not participate in these hobbies. You're losing money. This is why all of these shops, villainous layer here, this is why all of these shops are going under. This is why they die. The comic shops all across America are just steadily dying, and Marvel and DC, who are their chief suppliers, do not care. They don't care. As long as they can get online and virtue signal about how woke they are, they have no issues doing what they're doing. And it's sad. It is a sad state of affairs. Let's see. Flip over to Market Watch here. Another article where they were talking about some of the signs of what's going on with this stuff. At a Marvel meeting with retailers and distributors during the New York Comic Con in October, this is last year, several comic book sellers pushed back hard on diversity, blaming it for slumping sales, and they're right. The meeting quickly got ugly and Marvel shut it down, according to ICV2, an online trade publication that tracks the business of geek culture. Unlike most books which you can buy practically anywhere, comic books are still distributed largely through specialized stores. So this kind of feedback, I can't talk today, from specialized retailers is significant, even if it's anecdotal. Marvel doesn't disclose sales. Well, I'm here to tell you, I walked into a comic shop a month ago. The product is rotting on the shelf. It is just turning to dust on the shelves. Nobody's buying. What little bit is bought is the standards like Spider-Man, Batman, the books you expect to sell. Anything else they're trying to move, garbage. It's all garbage. Nobody's buying it. Nobody wants it. Nobody wants to be preached to. Nobody wants to hear how woke you are. Critics claim social justice warrior Marvel is forcing its politics on fans abandoning many of their popular characters and driving away readers. These commentaries often veer off into ugliness, threats of personal violence, so I don't want to fan the flames by linking to them. Well, it's the social justice warriors that are threatening violence. It's these people that cannot make an argument for ruining an industry. They can't. So the small businessman is going to suffer because you want to be woke. Okay? You guys got any opinions, arguments? Leave them down in the comments. I will comment back. Thanks for watching. I appreciate everybody that flips over here and watches these videos.